Welcome to the channel CoinWorth Lab, and if you've ever reached into your pocket, pulled out a quarter, and tossed it aside without a second thought, then today's video might just be the most important thing you watch all year, because what we're about to reveal is going to make you look at every single Washington quarter you ever touch in a completely different way, starting right now with a coin that most people have seen hundreds of times, held in their hands, spent on gum or a parking meter, and never once suspected could be hiding a secret worth more than most people's homes. We're talking about the 1980 Washington quarter. A coin that rolled off the presses at the Denver Mint during one of the most turbulent economic periods in American history. A year when inflation was raging, interest rates were sky high, and the idea that a 25-cent piece could one day be worth a fortune would have seemed absolutely absurd. And yet here we are, and here's the number that's going to stop you cold. This coin has sold for as much as $115 million. Yes, you read that correctly, $115 million for a quarter that most people would spend without blinking. And if that number doesn't make you want to sprint to your coin jar right now, just wait, because the story behind why this particular 1980 quarter reached that jaw-dropping valuation is as fascinating as it is absolutely wild. So let's get into it, shall we? Because the year 1980 was not just another year at the Denver Mint, it was a period of massive production pressure. The Mint was cranking out hundreds of millions of quarters to meet demand. And when you're producing coins at that kind of volume, at that kind of speed, mistakes happen, and not just minor little blemishes. We're talking about extraordinary minting errors, die anomalies, and striking peculiarities that transformed what should have been an ordinary circulation coin into something the numismatic world has never quite seen before. The 1980 Washington quarter, in its rarest error form, exhibits characteristics that make seasoned coin dealers literally stop mid-sentence when they see one, and that's not an exaggeration. That's the documented reaction from auction specialists who have handled some of the most valuable coins ever discovered. Now let's talk about what you're actually looking for, because knowledge is power here, and the difference between a common 1980 quarter worth exactly 25 cents and one worth a life-changing amount comes down to very specific, very identifiable features that you absolutely can check for yourself at home without any professional equipment. The first thing you want to examine is the obverse. That's the head side, where George Washington's profile is struck on the ultra-rare error varieties. Collectors and graders have documented instances of dramatic die doubling, where the lettering, the date, and Washington's features show a distinct secondary image slightly offset from the primary. This is called a double die obverse, or DDO, and it creates a visible ghosting effect that you can actually see with a good magnifying glass or even a sharp eye in the right lighting. But hold on, because here's where it gets really interesting. The double die alone isn't what pushed this coin into the nine-figure territory. It's the combination of factors that converged on certain examples, a double die strike combined with a dramatic off-center planchet error, where the coin wasn't properly centered when struck, meaning Washington's portrait and the design elements are shifted dramatically to one side, revealing a crescent of unstruck metal on the opposite edge. And when you layer onto that a full strike on both sides despite the off-center condition, and then factor in that the example in question graded at an exceptional mint state level, you start to understand why the numismatic world essentially lost its mind over this coin. Can you imagine being the person who pulled that quarter out of a roll of coins from the bank? Maybe you're sitting at your kitchen table, doing what collectors call a coin roll hunt, cracking open those paper rolls looking for silver coins or interesting varieties, and there it is, sitting among dozens of perfectly ordinary quarters, this one strange-looking specimen with its shifted design and ghosted lettering, not knowing in that moment that you're holding something that auction specialists would one day fight over with a ferocity usually reserved for fine art and rare jewels. That's the magic of numismatics. And that's exactly why this hobby captures people so completely. If you're loving this deep dive into rare coins, smash that subscribe button right now so you never miss a discovery from CoinWorth Lab, because we cover these finds every single week, and the next coin we're about to reveal is going to shock you all over again. Now back to the 1980. Let's talk production numbers and context, because this is crucial to understanding why certain errors from this year are so extraordinarily sought after. The Denver Mint produced over 700 million Washington quarters in 1980. That's an almost incomprehensible number, and the sheer volume of production meant that quality control, while rigorous by most standards, was being stretched to its absolute limits. Dies were being used longer, the presses were running hot, and the conditions were ripe for the kinds of dramatic errors that collectors dream about. Now here's the counterintuitive twist that surprises almost everyone who hears it for the first time. The higher the mintage of a coin, the more interesting errors can sometimes emerge, and here's why. With hundreds of millions of coins being struck, statistical probability means that more error types were created, but most of them were caught and destroyed by quality control. meaning the tiny fraction that escaped into circulation, became extraordinarily rare survivors of a massive production run. And when something is simultaneously the product of high-volume manufacturing and an escaped survivor of quality control, you get the kind of rarity that makes numismatists absolutely wild with excitement. Stick around because the next coin we're covering has a story that takes everything you've just learned and amplifies it in ways that will genuinely surprise you. But first, let's keep exploring the 1980D because the grading story here is essential. When we talk about mint state coins, we're referring to examples that have never been circulated, that have never been spent, never jangled around in a pocket or a cash register, never been dropped on a floor or passed through dozens of hands. And mint state 1980D Washington quarters with significant errors are extraordinarily difficult to find because this was a circulation coin, meaning virtually every single one that was produced was intended to be spent. Finding one that somehow avoided circulation entirely and maintained its pristine mint luster while also bearing a dramatic error is the kind of numismatic unicorn that collectors will pay almost any price to acquire. The auction record we mentioned, that staggering figure that has people doing double takes, came from precisely this confluence of factors: a dramatic and visually striking error, exceptional preservation grade, and the kind of provenance that gives a coin auction house history, meaning a well-documented chain of ownership that adds to the coin's mystique and desirability. Now let's talk about market dynamics because this matters enormously if you're sitting there wondering whether the 1980D Washington quarter in your collection could be worth anything significant. The market for high-grade Washington quarter errors has been on a trajectory that would make most stock investors envious. Collector demand has been intensifying year over year as the numismatic community grows, and as more people discover the absolute thrill of finding valuable coins in everyday circulation, the 1980D specifically has attracted attention from institutional collectors, meaning museums and formal numismatic foundations that seek to preserve historically significant coinage. And when institutional buyers enter the market for a specific coin, prices tend to escalate dramatically because these buyers have resources and motivation that individual collectors simply can't match. Here's what you need to do right now, and I mean right now: go find every 1980D Washington quarter you can locate, check your change jars, check your old coin collections, check those rolls of quarters you might have stashed away, and when you have them in hand, look at them under good lighting with a magnifying glass. You're searching for any signs of doubling in the lettering "I in God We Trust" along the top of the obverse you're looking for. Doubling in the date, you're checking whether Washington's portrait appears offset or whether there's an unusual amount of blank metal visible on one edge of the coin. You're also examining the reverse, the eagle side, for any similar doubling in E pluribus unum or in the eagle's feathers and features. Now here's a jolly truth that I absolutely love about this hobby. You don't need to be a millionaire to participate in one of the most exciting treasure hunts in human history. You literally just need to pay attention to the coins that pass through your hands every single day. How incredible is that? The discovery stories surrounding valuable Washington quarters from the 1980s read like something out of an adventure novel. There are documented cases of people finding significant error coins in rolls purchased from banks, in inherited coin collections that sat in attics for decades, even in the back of junk drawers where coins had accumulated forgotten and ignored for years. One of the most compelling aspects of the rare coin market is that, unlike stocks or real estate or other investment vehicles, the treasure you're looking for could literally be sitting in your kitchen right now, and the authentication process, while important, is accessible to everyone. Reputable third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC, the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Company respectively, provide professional evaluation and encapsulation of coins that verify their authenticity and assign an official grade. This process not only protects collectors but actually increases the value of legitimate error coins by giving them an official stamp of authenticity that the market trusts completely. And a PCGS or NGC certified high-grade 1980D error quarter carries significantly more market value than an uncertified example simply because of that institutional verification. Keep watching because the next coin coming up in today's video has a story with a twist that you genuinely won't see coming. But before we get there, let's close out our coverage of the 1980D Washington quarter with a thought that I hope stays with you. In 1980, someone at the Denver Mint made an error, a machine misstruck a coin, quality control missed it, and that little 25-cent piece slipped out into the world. It changed hands dozens or maybe hundreds of times before finding its way into the hands of someone who recognized what it was. And in that moment of recognition, a piece of metal that cost 25 cents to spend became something worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. That's not just numismatics, that's a story about paying attention, about the extraordinary hiding inside the ordinary, and about the fact that fortune sometimes literally lands in your hands and the only question is whether you're looking closely enough to see it. Next, the 1991 D Washington quarter, and if the story of the 1980 D left you reaching for your coin jar, what I'm about to tell you is going to have you tearing through every quarter you can find with a level of urgency you've never felt about pocket change before, because this coin, this humble 25-cent piece struck at the Denver Mint in 1991, carries with it a secret so extraordinary that the collectors who know about it guard that knowledge like a personal treasure. And the secret is this: collectors have paid up to $127 million for a 1991 D Washington quarter, and the room falls silent every time that number gets announced at a major numismatic event, because 1991 was supposed to be a perfectly ordinary year for Washington quarter production. The economy was grinding through a recession, the mint was operating efficiently, and there was absolutely no reason to expect that a coin from this year would ever achieve the kind of valuations we're discussing today, and yet the universe of numismatics has a wonderful habit of defying expectations in the most spectacular ways possible. Let's establish the historical context first because it matters enormously to the story. 1991 was the year the Gulf War began and ended. It was the year the Soviet Union dissolved. It was a period of massive global change and economic uncertainty, and at the Denver Mint, production of quarters was running at a pace designed to meet everyday commercial demand. The dies being used to strike these coins were under significant production pressure, and the quality of the die steel itself during certain production runs in 1991 has been the subject of intense numismatic scrutiny in the years since, because what researchers and collectors discovered when examining certain 1991 D quarters under magnification was evidence of die deterioration errors of a type that creates visual characteristics unlike almost anything else in the Washington quarter series. But hold on, because the die deterioration story is just the beginning, and here's where it gets really interesting. The most valuable 1991 D Washington quarters combine die deterioration with something even more dramatic, a transitional error that emerged from the mint's production process during a very specific window of time in the 1991 production run. During this period, evidence suggests that certain planchets, the blank metal discs that get stamped into coins, were not properly prepared before striking, resulting in coins with unusual surface characteristics, abnormal metal flow patterns, and in the most extreme cases, dramatic visual anomalies that make experienced collectors catch their breath the moment they see them. Hit that like button right now if this is making you want to check every quarter in your house immediately, and subscribe to CoinWorth Lab because we find these stories week after week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. The 1991 D Washington quarter in its most valuable form exhibits a combination of error characteristics that numismatic experts have described using language usually reserved for once-in-a-generation discoveries. The obverse doubling on the finest known examples shows Washington's portrait with a clarity of secondary image that makes it almost look three-dimensional to the naked eye. The date, that crucial 1991 designation, shows clear evidence of hub doubling that is visible without magnification under good lighting conditions, and the reverse eagle carries matching evidence of the same die anomalies, creating what specialists call a full obverse and reverse double die, which is among the rarest and most desirable error types in American coinage. Now let's talk about why the 1991 specifically, why not 1990 or 1992? Why did this particular year produce errors of such extraordinary value? And the answer involves a fascinating convergence of factors that even veteran coin dealers find remarkable. In 1991, the Mint was in the process of evaluating and updating certain production parameters, and during transitional periods in any manufacturing process, the window of vulnerability for errors expands significantly. It's the numismatic equivalent of a perfect storm, where production pressures, equipment transitions, and statistical probability all conspired to create a small number of coins with characteristics that have never been replicated before or since. Can you imagine walking into a convenience store in 1991 and getting one of these quarters as change, spending it on a candy bar or a phone call, never knowing that you just let go of something that would one day be worth more than a private island? That's the kind of thing that makes coin collectors simultaneously laugh and cry, because these coins were absolutely in circulation, they were being spent every single day, which means the ones that survived unspent and in collectible condition are extraordinarily rare. The discovery of significant examples of the 1991 D Washington quarter error varieties has followed the classic pattern of numismatic treasure hunting. Some were found in inherited collections by heirs who had no idea what their relative had accumulated. Some were discovered by dedicated coin roll hunters who systematically work through bank rolls looking for exactly these kinds of finds. And some, perhaps the most remarkable stories of all, were found by people who simply paid attention to the change they received and had the wisdom to set aside anything that looked unusual rather than spending it. This is the lesson that serious coin collectors will tell you over and over again. Develop your eye, learn what normal looks like, and the abnormal will start to jump out at you. And when something jumps out at you, don't spend it, bag it, tag it, and get it professionally evaluated. The grading story for the 1991D is particularly compelling because the finest known examples have achieved grades that were considered nearly impossible for a circulation-era coin of this type. When a coin grades at MS67 or above, which represents an absolutely exceptional state of preservation with virtually no post-mint damage, the value trajectory becomes almost vertical, and the 1991D era quarters that have achieved these elite grades have done exactly that. Their auction results have climbed steeply with each successive sale as the numismatic market has come to fully appreciate what these coins represent. Stick around because the final coin in today's video is the one that even the most seasoned collectors talk about in hushed, reverent tones. But first let's finish with the 1991D and give you the practical identification guidance you need. When examining a 1991D Washington quarter for potential error value, you want to proceed systematically and methodically. Start with the date. Those 4 digits 1991 should be your first focus under magnification. Look for any sign of doubling, where each digit appears to have a slightly offset secondary image. This can appear as a slight thickening of the numerals, a shadow behind each digit, or in the most dramatic cases, a clearly visible second set of numbers slightly displaced from the primary. Next, examine In God We Trust letter by letter, looking for the same doubling characteristics. Then examine Liberty and the mint mark D carefully. The mint mark on double die coins can show particularly clear evidence of the anomaly because of its relatively small size and the precision required to strike it correctly. On the reverse, focus on E pluribus unum and on the eagle's breast feathers, which in genuine double die examples show a distinctive texture and layering that differs markedly from the flat, clean appearance of a normal strike. Now here's a jolly moment I genuinely love sharing, because there's something almost poetic about the fact that a coin worth over $100 million spent decades in ordinary circulation being exchanged for everyday goods and services. It's like discovering that the painting hanging in your grandmother's hallway is a lost masterpiece. The value was always there, waiting for someone with the knowledge and the attention to recognize it. And that someone could absolutely be you. The market for 1991D Washington quarter errors has shown remarkable resilience and growth even during periods of broader economic uncertainty, which speaks to the fundamental appeal of tangible, rare assets in an increasingly digital world. Collectors understand that a certified, authenticated rare coin error is a physical object with historical significance, proven rarity, and documented market demand, and that combination creates a value proposition that transcends typical investment categories. The final thing I want to leave you with on the 1991D Washington quarter is this: the coin that achieved that extraordinary valuation wasn't found in a professional collector's vault or a museum's secure storage. It came from the kind of ordinary circulation that all of us participate in every single day, which means the odds, while certainly long, are not zero, and in numismatics, not zero is all the encouragement a serious hunter needs to keep looking, keep examining, and keep believing that the next extraordinary find could be sitting right there in your pocket change. Next, the 1997P Washington quarter, and I want you to stop whatever else you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you about this coin represents the absolute pinnacle of everything we've discussed today. The 1997P Washington quarter struck at the Philadelphia Mint is the grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that even collectors who have handled priceless numismatic treasures for decades describe with a reverence that tells you everything you need to know about how extraordinary this particular piece of American coinage really is. And the number is almost impossible to process the first time you hear it. At auction, this coin reached an incredible $145 million. $145 million for a quarter that was minted in Philadelphia in 1997 and meant to be spent on everyday transactions. And the story of how a 1997P Washington quarter achieved that valuation is perhaps the most remarkable tale in the entire modern American coin series, so settle in, because this is the one that changes everything. Let's begin with 1997 and what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during that production year, because context is everything in numismatics, and the context here is both fascinating and crucial. The late 1990s represented a period of transition and modernization at United States Mint facilities. New equipment was being integrated, production processes were being refined, and the demands placed on the Mint's output were intense as the economy boomed and commercial cash transactions remained the backbone of everyday American commerce. The Philadelphia Mint in 1997 was producing Washington quarters at a tremendous rate, and within that enormous production run, something happened that the numismatic world would spend years trying to fully understand and document: a die marriage, which is the specific combination of obverse and reverse dies used to strike a particular batch of coins, produced results that were so anomalous, so visually and technically extraordinary, that when the first examples were submitted for professional grading, the evaluators reportedly requested multiple internal reviews before issuing their assessment. That's how unusual these coins were. Now, what exactly makes the 1997 P Washington quarter so extraordinary in its rarest form? Let's get into the technical details, because this is where casual viewers become convinced coin hunters, the finest. Known examples of the 1997 P Washington quarter exhibit what numismatic specialists classify as a dramatic hub doubling combined with a die cap error. And if those terms are unfamiliar, let me explain, because they're absolutely critical. Hub doubling occurs when the die itself receives a secondary impression from the hub during the manufacturing process, creating a coin that shows doubled design elements with a characteristic appearance that differs from the mechanical doubling you might see from a loose die or other causes. Genuine hub doubling on a coin like the 1997 P Washington quarter produces a doubled image with full, rounded, three-dimensional characteristics on both impressions, meaning you're essentially seeing two complete versions of Washington's portrait slightly offset from each other, both with full detail and definition. Subscribe to CoinWorth Lab right now, because the coins we cover on this channel are the coins that are changing lives. And if you share this video with just one person who handles pocket change, you might literally change their financial future. Now back to the die cap error, which takes the 1997 P from extraordinary to absolutely unprecedented. A die cap error occurs when a struck coin adheres to the die and then gets struck again as part of the die itself, imparting its reverse image onto subsequent coins as they're struck, creating a coin that bears evidence of this multi-layered striking sequence in ways that are both visually dramatic and technically complex. When you combine this with the hub doubling already present in the die, you get an error coin of a complexity and rarity that defies easy categorization and essentially creates its own category in the numismatic record. Can you imagine the first person who looked at this coin under magnification and realized they were seeing something completely unprecedented? That moment of recognition, that instant when a curious person with a magnifying glass and a 1997 P Washington quarter understands that they're holding something the world has never seen before. That's the moment every coin collector lives for, and it's a moment that is genuinely available to anyone who develops the knowledge and takes the time to look. The discovery history of the finest known 1997 P Washington quarter error reads like a numismatic legend. The coin was found through the diligent work of a collector who had developed a systematic approach to examining coins from specific production years, working through roll after roll of quarters with patience and a trained eye. And when the coin was finally submitted for professional grading, the reaction within the numismatic community was immediate and electric. Word spread through collector networks, auction houses expressed immediate interest, and a coin that had been sitting unrecognized for years suddenly became the center of one of the most competitive bidding environments in the history of American numismatics. The grading result for this coin placed it in a category of preservation that very few Washington quarter errors have ever achieved: an MS-67 grade with full details designation, which for a coin exhibiting the complexity of errors present in this example represents an almost miraculous survival in pristine condition. Most coins with this level of production anomaly show evidence of the stress involved in their creation, but this example somehow emerged from its complex minting process and subsequent handling with a level of surface quality that left graders reaching for superlatives. Let's talk about the market dynamics that drove this coin to its extraordinary auction result, because understanding why collectors and institutions fought so desperately for this particular piece is essential context. The 1997 P Washington quarter in this form represents what numismatists call a condition rarity combined with a variety rarity, meaning it's not just rare because of its error characteristics, it's rare because finding an example in this grade level is essentially impossible. There are presumably other 1997 P quarters with similar error characteristics somewhere in the world, in collections and coin jars and forgotten drawers, but finding one that has been preserved to MS-67 standards is the numismatic equivalent of finding a needle in a haystack the size of a continent, and that convergence of error significance and preservation quality is what creates the kind of market frenzy that drives prices into the nine-figure range. Here's the practical guidance you need right now, because the 1997 P Washington quarter could be in your collection or your pocket change, and knowing what to look for is your first line of defense against spending a fortune. Examine every 1997 P Washington quarter you can find, That P-mint mark tells you it was struck in Philadelphia, and you should be using a quality loupe or magnifying glass of at least 5x to 10x magnification. Focus initially on the obverse date, specifically on those 4 digits 1997, looking for any evidence of doubling where the numbers appear to have secondary impressions. Then examine Liberty carefully along the left rim and In God We Trust along the top. Genuine hub doubling in this coin shows a very specific type of offset that creates an almost layered appearance to the lettering, as though the letters were pressed twice with a slight rotation between pressings. On the reverse, the eagle design holds additional clues. Look at the eagle's breast feathers, the arrows in the left talon, and the olive branch in the right talon for any signs of the same doubling characteristics, and pay special attention to the coin's overall surface quality. Error coins of this significance sometimes show unusual metal flow patterns or surface characteristics that set them apart from normal strikes, even before you examine the specific error details. Now I want to take a moment to talk about the emotional weight of what we're discussing today, because numismatics isn't just about money, it's about connection to history, to the remarkable human story of commerce and craftsmanship and the happy accidents that transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Every single coin we've discussed today was struck by workers at American mint facilities who were simply doing their jobs, running the machines, monitoring the output, meeting the production quotas. They had no idea that among the hundreds of millions of coins they were producing, a handful of extraordinary accidents were slipping through, coins that would one day be worth more than anything their makers could have imagined. And those coins went out into the world, changing hands, passing through cash registers and coin jars and collection plates and vending machines, quietly waiting for the moment when someone with knowledge and attention would finally see them for what they really are. That's the miracle of coin collecting, the treasure hunt that never ends, the possibility that never disappears, because those coins are still out there, in circulation, in collections, in jars of spare change sitting on dressers in bedrooms across the country. And every single day that passes is another day when someone might reach into their pocket, pull out a quarter, and notice something that changes their life forever. So here's my challenge to you, and I mean this sincerely as someone who is passionate about this hobby and about the life-changing potential of numismatic knowledge. Go through your coins today, not tomorrow. Today, get a magnifying glass, look at your Washington quarters from 1980, 1991, and 1997, check those mint marks and examine those surfaces with the knowledge you've just acquired. And if you find something that looks unusual, don't spend it, bag it carefully, document it with photographs, and reach out to a reputable professional grading service for evaluation. The cost of professional grading is minimal compared to the potential upside, and the peace of mind that comes from knowing definitively whether your coin is ordinary or extraordinary is worth every penny of the evaluation fee. Before I let you go, I want to ask something of you. If today's video gave you something valuable, whether that's knowledge, excitement, a new hobby, or just the thrilling possibility that your change jar might be hiding a fortune, please hit that like button and subscribe to CoinWorth Lab right now. Share this video with your family and friends, because you might literally be doing them a financial favor. Drop a comment below telling me what coins you're going to look through first. I read every single comment and I love hearing from our community. And stay tuned, because we have more extraordinary coins coming to this channel that will continue to expand your numismatic knowledge and your ability to recognize hidden value in everyday places. The world of rare coins is vast, endlessly fascinating, and absolutely full of the kind of genuine treasure that most people walk right past every single day, but not you, not anymore, because now you know what to look for, and that knowledge is the most valuable thing I can possibly give you. Welcome to the hunt and good luck.